There are moments in life when you stumble upon a story that feels different, not just inspiring, but almost forbidden. This is one of those stories. They call it the Lost Prayer of Solomon, a prayer whispered in the shadows of kings and later echoed by Florence Scovel Shinn, the woman who revealed the secrets of divine law. Clara never imagined that her ordinary, quiet life would collide with this ancient mystery. Yet when it did, nothing was ever the same again. She wasn't chasing riches, she was simply trying to survive, stretching pennies, praying late at night, whispering words that felt more like desperation than faith. But then, out of nowhere, she encountered a story that carried a strange weight. It spoke of a decree prayer that wasn't begging, but commanding. It promised that alignment with heaven could reorder even the chaos of her empty bank account. For the first time in years, Clara felt something spark inside her heart. The deeper she leaned in, the stranger it became. Dreams of winning numbers, 888, glowing in golden light. Signs that seemed too precise to be coincidence. A quiet pull toward a simple morning ritual. A soft voice telling her to declare an abundance prayer with authority. It was as if life itself was bending to meet her words. Clara realized this wasn't superstition. It was a manifestation prayer grounded in laws older than time. And before I share what happened next, let me pause to ask you something. From where are you listening? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments, because this family of seekers is growing across the world, and your story matters here too. And if you haven't yet, subscribe now, because each story we share carries a hidden code, a key like this Solomon prayer, and the next one might hold the exact breakthrough your soul has been waiting for. Clara's life had become a quiet battle no one could see. The bills stacked higher each month, and every time she opened her mailbox, her chest tightened as if it carried not letters, but weights. Nights were the hardest. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, whispering money prayers that felt like they dissolved into silence. By morning, she would put on a brave smile, pretending to her children that everything was fine, when inside, she felt like she was drowning. There was a deep shame in her silence. She hated borrowing, hated the way friends' eyes softened with pity when she confessed she couldn't afford something small. Every day felt like she was walking through fog, lost and unseen. And yet, Clara never stopped. Even in her despair, she would light a candle at night, close her eyes, and try one more time. She didn't know it then, but those quiet moments were the soil where a hidden seed was waiting to break through. Because sometimes life allows you to reach the very edge, not to punish you, but to prepare you. And just when Clara thought her prayers had no voice, a strange story came across her path. A story about an ancient Solomon prayer, a decree prayer whispered by kings, revived centuries later by Florence Scovel Shinn, who called it alignment with divine law. Clara didn't understand it yet, but something in her spirit leaned closer, as if she had stumbled upon a secret meant only for her. And this is where her journey takes a turn, because on one quiet night, when she thought nothing could ever change, Clara would encounter a single detail, a simple phrase that would unlock the mystery she had been waiting for. What was that detail, and why did it carry the power to change everything? We'll step into that moment next. Clara sat at her small kitchen table in Florida, the glow of the fridge light behind her, a half-empty cup of coffee gone cold at her side. She stared at the stack of envelopes, electric bill, water bill, past due notice, and whispered to herself, "How much longer can I do this? Why does money always slip through my fingers?" She wanted to believe in God's provision, but every time she checked her online banking app, The numbers mocked her, sinking lower with every swipe. Walking through Walmart one afternoon, Clara overheard two strangers talking near the checkout. One mentioned seeing the same repeating numbers, 888, on a receipt. Her heart skipped. Why do I keep hearing that number? She thought. Later that night, alone in her bedroom, she scrolled on her phone until a headline caught her. The Lost Prayer of Solomon. The words sent a shiver down her spine. Could this be the answer she had been begging for in her nightly gratitude prayers? Her mind argued, this is silly. How can a prayer change what years of work couldn't? But another voice whispered back, what if this is different? What if this isn't about begging, but about alignment? She remembered Florence Scovel Shen's words she once read in a borrowed book. Your word is your wand. Clara felt torn, half skeptic, half desperate believer. Yet something in her spirit told her she couldn't just scroll past. She didn't know it yet, but that simple moment, pausing on a video about the Solomon Prayer, would be the doorway into a hidden chapter of her life. Because what she was about to hear wasn't just another money prayer. It was described as a manifestation prayer, a decree prayer that shifted destinies. And soon, Clara would test it for herself. But how would she know it was real? The answer came in a dream she could never forget.
That night, Clara drifted into a restless sleep. In her dream, she found herself standing in front of a massive wooden door carved with ancient symbols. Above it glowed the number 888, shimmering in golden light, so bright it made her chest vibrate. She reached out her hand, and as her fingers touched the door, she felt warmth rush through her body, a peace she hadn't felt in years. She woke up breathless, whispering to herself, what was that? Why can't I stop seeing this number? Sitting on the edge of her bed, the clock glowing 3:33 a.m., she thought about the envelopes waiting on her table, about her daughter asking if she could join a school trip, and the shame she felt saying no. Could a dream really mean anything? Or am I just so desperate I'm making things up? But deep inside, a small voice said, pay attention, Clara. This is not coincidence. It's a sign. She couldn't shake the feeling. The next morning, she lit a candle as part of her usual morning ritual, whispered a short gratitude prayer, and then, for the first time, spoke differently. She remembered the words, this is not a plea, this is a decree. Slowly, she declared aloud, I align with divine law. I reject lack. Abundance flows to me now. Her voice trembled, but she felt the weight of those words move through her. Clara didn't know it yet, but this was the very beginning of what some call a 9-day prayer journey. And within days, her world would start to respond. Numbers would show up in strange places. Doors she thought were closed would begin creaking open. But how could she be sure this was real and not just her imagination? That proof was about to arrive in the most unexpected way. Over the next few days, Clara began to notice details she would have once ignored. At the gas station, her total stopped at $18.88. On her grocery receipt, 3 items rung up to $8.88. Even her neighbor's license plate seemed to wink at her with those same digits. Each time, her heart raced. This can't just be chance. It feels like something or someone is trying to get my attention. It wasn't only the numbers. One evening, while folding laundry, the radio suddenly switched stations by itself, landing on a voice that said, your breakthrough is closer than you think. Clara froze, her hands trembling as she whispered, God, is that you? She felt goosebumps run down her arms. Later that night, she dreamed again. This time of golden keys dropping into her hands, each engraved with the word abundance.
Everywhere she turned, ordinary life carried extraordinary whispers. Walking through a store, a little girl passed by holding a book titled The Game of Life and How to Play It, Florence Scovel Shinn's famous work. Clara stopped in her tracks. This book again? Why does it keep following me? She couldn't escape the sense that the Solomon Prayer was circling her, waiting for her to step into alignment. And if you're feeling a spark of curiosity listening to Clara's story, take a moment to like this video, because the more we share these hidden stories, the more lives can shift. But Clara's story doesn't stop here. These signs were only the beginning, and soon one nudge would push her into a choice she never thought she'd make. A choice that would test whether these signals were real or just her imagination. On the third morning, Clara couldn't ignore it anymore. She walked into the corner market, the same one where she always bought milk and bread, and as she passed the lottery stand, her chest tightened. The glowing number from her dreams, 888, flashed across her mind. Her inner voice whispered, "This is it. Don't walk away." But another voice argued, "Don't be ridiculous, Clara. You can't put your hope in a ticket." She froze in the aisle, heart pounding, caught between fear and faith. She looked around, the cashier scanning items, a mother calming her toddler, the hum of the soda machine in the background. Everything was ordinary, yet to Clara it felt supernatural. Slowly, she reached for a slip, her hands trembling as she wrote down numbers that seemed to write themselves. What if this is the alignment Florence Scovel Shinn spoke about? What if this is what the lost prayer of Solomon meant by decree, not request? She thought. At the checkout, her fingers shook as she handed over a few crumpled dollars. The cashier smiled, unaware of the battle raging inside her heart. She walked out of the store, clutching the ticket as if it were a fragile piece of destiny. "Either I'm a fool, or this is the sign I've been waiting for," she whispered. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was begging. She felt like she was stepping into divine law, into spiritual alignment that was guiding her path. That night, she placed the ticket beside her candle and whispered a night ritual prayer. "I align with abundance. What is mine cannot be withheld." She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but her spirit felt strangely calm. And little did she know, the real miracle wasn't just about the numbers. It was about what would happen in her heart the very next day. The hours that followed felt endless. Clara went about her day, washing dishes, folding laundry, answering her daughter's questions about homework, but her mind was somewhere else. Every glance at the folded ticket on her nightstand made her chest flutter. What if it's nothing? What if I've only been fooling myself? She wondered. But then another thought pushed back. What if this is real? What if the signs and numbers weren't just coincidence? That evening, she cooked dinner, mac and cheese with a side of frozen peas, yet barely touched her own plate. The hum of the TV in the living room felt louder than usual, and each tick of the clock seemed to mock her impatience. She tried distracting herself with a short gratitude prayer, thanking God for the small things. But her eyes kept drifting toward the candle she had lit earlier, its flame swaying like it was whispering secrets she couldn't yet hear. When the night grew darker, Clara sat on the couch, scrolling absent-mindedly through her phone. Posts of friends on vacation, smiling with cocktails by the beach, stung her heart. Why does it look so easy for them, and why does it feel like I've always been left behind? She thought, a tear slipping down her cheek. She closed her eyes, clutching the ticket. If this is truly the lost prayer of Solomon at work, show me, please, show me. The air in the room felt heavy, charged, as if the walls themselves were waiting with her. Every second brought her closer to the moment she both longed for and dreaded. And as the hour of the drawing approached, Clara would discover something she never expected. The real test wasn't about the numbers on the paper, but about the transformation already happening inside her. But what exactly did she feel when the results appeared? That's the moment we'll step into next. The TV flickered softly in the corner of Clara's living room,
the announcer's voice steady as the lottery drawing began. She sat on the edge of the couch, clutching the small slip of paper so tightly it crumpled in her hand. Her heart beat in her ears, louder than the numbers being called. "Please, God, if this is real, give me a sign." The first ball rolled out. 8. Her breath caught. The second, another 8. She pressed a hand against her chest, eyes wide, her body trembling. By the time the third ball revealed 8 again, her vision blurred with tears. It wasn't millions, it wasn't even the jackpot, but her numbers matched just enough to bring a sum that could pay her overdue bills, fix the broken heater, and give her daughter the school trip she had been praying for. Clara dropped the ticket onto the table and buried her face in her hands. A flood of relief and gratitude poured out as sobs shook her body. "It's real. It actually happened. I'm not invisible. I'm not forgotten." She whispered the abundance prayer again and again, this time not as a plea, but as a decree. What is mine cannot be withheld. By divine law, I receive. But what struck Clara most wasn't the money. It was the feeling. For the first time in years, the fear of lack loosened its grip on her heart. She felt aligned, as if heaven itself had leaned in to remind her of who she truly was. And yet, deep down, she knew this was only the beginning, because the real miracle wasn't about winning numbers. It was about what those numbers were unlocking inside her soul. But what transformation did Clara carry from this moment forward? That's what we'll uncover next. The following morning felt different before Clara even opened her eyes. The heaviness that used to press on her chest was gone. She walked to the kitchen, brewed her coffee, and instead of staring at the pile of envelopes with dread, she smiled. For the first time in years, she had enough in her account to pay them. One by one, she wrote checks and clicked Submit online, whispering a soft gratitude prayer with each bill paid. It wasn't just money, it was freedom. But something deeper shifted inside her. When she looked in the mirror, she no longer saw the tired, defeated woman she had grown used to. Her posture straightened, her eyes shone brighter, and even her walk carried a new rhythm. She caught herself whispering affirmations throughout the day. "I align with divine law. I am favored. Abundance flows to me now." It wasn't rehearsed anymore. It was real. It was hers. Everywhere she went, life seemed to respond. The cashier greeted her with unusual warmth. Her daughter hugged her tighter. Even neighbors stopped to chat, as if sensing the change. Clara realized the Solomon prayer wasn't about luck. It was about spiritual alignment, about remembering she had always been connected to abundance. She understood now why Florence Scovel said, "Your word is your wand." She had spoken her way into a new reality. But deep down, she knew this was only the beginning, because the real miracle wasn't about winning numbers. It was about what those numbers were unlocking inside her soul. But what transformation did Clara carry from this moment forward? That's what we'll uncover next. Clara knew that one moment of victory was not enough. She needed to anchor this breakthrough into her life. So she began what she called her 9-day prayer journey. Every morning before sunrise and every night before sleep, she lit her candle, opened her notebook, and spoke the manifestation prayer out loud. "I align with divine law. What is mine cannot be withheld. Money flows to me now." At first, her voice shook, but with each repetition, it grew steadier, stronger.
Yet the journey was not without struggle. Some days doubts whispered, maybe this was just luck, maybe it won't last.
On those days, Clara wrestled with her own mind, reminding herself of Florence Scovel Shinn's words, "Your word is your wand." She realized the fight wasn't only against unpaid bills, it was against the inner voice of lack that had lived in her for years. And each time she spoke the decree prayer, she felt that voice grow weaker. The more she practiced, the more her perspective shifted. Simple tasks felt sacred. Pouring her coffee became a morning ritual. Writing in her journal became a declaration of faith. She began to see every small blessing as a sign, every repeated number as confirmation she was aligned. Clara understood now that this wasn't magic, it was spiritual alignment, a law as real as gravity. And that law was beginning to reshape not just her bank account, but her entire identity. Still, Clara couldn't shake one question that lingered in her heart. If this prayer had the power to change her life so quickly, what would happen if she shared it with others? Would they too find the freedom she had found? And soon, she would get her answer, because the story she carried was about to touch someone else in a way she never imagined. Clara never expected her private journey to spill into the lives of others. Yet one Sunday after church, a friend noticed something different. "You look lighter, Clara, almost like a new person. What happened?" At first she hesitated. How could she explain dreams of 888 or the lost prayer of Solomon that had changed her life? But then she smiled and said softly, "I learned how to stop begging and start declaring." Her friend leaned in, desperate to hear more. Clara told her about the abundance prayer, about Florence Scovel Shinn and the divine law that had shifted her reality. She didn't talk about money as luck, but as alignment, about a decree prayer that reshaped the way she thought, spoke, and acted. By the time she finished, tears filled her friend's eyes. "Clara, I need this too. Can you teach me?" Soon, others began to notice. Neighbors, co-workers, even her own children asked why she carried so much peace. Clara started writing the prayer down on slips of paper, sharing it quietly with those who asked. She explained how to use it as a morning ritual and a night ritual, how to speak it with conviction, and how to treat the next 9 days as sacred ground. For the first time, Clara felt not just blessed, but like a messenger of hope. And yet, as word spread, so did something else. Clara began to wonder, am I ready for this? What if people don't believe me? What if they think it's foolish? She knew sharing her story meant exposing her heart. Still, she couldn't ignore the pull, because soon her testimony would be tested in front of someone she least expected, and their reaction would surprise her more than the numbers ever did. The person Clara least expected to notice her change was her brother, Daniel. He had always been a skeptic, a man who believed only in hard work and numbers on a page. When Clara mentioned, almost without thinking, the Solomon prayer and the discipline of the 9-day prayer, he laughed. "So, you're telling me a dream and a few words changed your life? Come on, Clara." But that night, Daniel called back. His voice was different, shaken, almost broken. "I don't know why, but I can't stop thinking about what you said. I'm drowning in debt, and for the first time, I felt hope listening to you." Clara's eyes filled with tears. She realized in that moment that her story was never meant to stay with her alone. It was a lifeline for others who were silently suffering. What had begun as a money prayer for survival had now become a testimony of transformation. Clara's life didn't change because of a ticket. It changed because she finally remembered who she truly was, a daughter of the divine, created not to crawl in fear, but to walk in authority. The lost prayer of Solomon was no longer just an old phrase. It became the fire that lit her path. Florence Scovel Shinn's words about divine law were no longer lines in a book. They became flesh in Clara's life. She discovered that a manifestation prayer is not superstition, but alignment, that when you speak with authority, heaven itself bends to answer. And if you've walked through this story with her, maybe you feel it too. That same stirring she once felt in the silence of the night, that whisper inside that says, "This is not just her story, this is mine." You don't need to wait for luck. You don't have to live trapped in fear or scarcity. The signs, the numbers, the dreams, they are not accidents. They're reminders that abundance is already reaching for you. So let me ask you, will you stay silent, begging for crumbs, or will you dare to declare what has always been yours by right? Write it in the comments now. I align with divine abundance. Let those words be your public seal, your declaration that the season of lack is over. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because the next story might hold the exact key your soul has been crying out for. Remember this truth. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. Like Clara, you were never created for chains. You were created to reign. And your new chapter begins today.